Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to another episode about the WordPress mega menu. Welcome again. In the last episode, I showed you how to create a sub menu, so multiple indentations for our mega menu in a way that if we have more child assigned to a parent, we can easily, with the WalkerNav class, by updating the WalkerNav class, we can easily take care of all these kind of situation. Now, what I want to do, I want to improve the usability of our mega menu in a way of generating the mega menu from administrator point of view, like giving the ability to an admin or the user itself that needs to generate and activate a mega menu to use a better interface and not just relying on classes, because right now how our system works, it's all based on classes. So we didn't update the administration panel of WordPress, and we're relying only on specifying some custom classes in the CSS classes option field in the appearance menus section. What would be nice, and what we're gonna code right now, would be the ability to have for every field, for every menu item, the ability to have some custom options like this. So checking to have, like, for example, I want these element to be a mega menu, just check. And if I want for example, these to be a dividers, just check, having a divider option. So basically what we're gonna do, we're gonna code customized administration menus area in order to have and print custom fields, like in my case just simple checkboxes, to customize the experience of the mega menu related to the custom fields and not just classes. That honestly, classes are not the best solution because you could probably forget what type of class you need to use. You can have typos or spelling mistakes and your system will not work as expected. So let's take a look on how to do it. A little disclaimer, because this whole experience of like coding a custom fields, like some custom fields for the administration menu, it's gonna be a bit long. I will most likely cut this video in multiple parts. I will record all together, but because it's gonna be pretty long and pretty intensive, I'm gonna cut it in multiple parts and upload it at like 1 day of distance between each other, just to give you a little bit of buffer, because we're gonna tackle a lot of different functionalities and features of WordPress, and I don't want to overwhelm you too much. So let's get started. Another thing, because of the complexity of this tutorial or this series of tutorials, I'm not going to use any object-oriented programming, even if you should, because that would be a way better approach. I don't want to overwhelm you again with too many functionalities, too many advanced features of PHP and WordPress. I'm going to just use simple procedural code, but just be aware that you can always convert it in object-oriented programming. You definitely should do that because it's better, but let's get started. So let's first gather our thoughts and list everything that we need to do in order to make those custom fields in the admin menu work. I'm working off of the regular functions.php of WordPress. You can have a custom file, a require file, or whatever you want. I'm just going to use this file because it's easier. So first, let's write some comments. So let's say that here, this is my mega menu custom fields section. So I have my beautiful comment section that is gonna divide everything. So in order to achieve that, we need to do mostly 4 things, even if those 4 things are pretty big things. So the first thing, we need to create the fields, and we need to create a list of fields in 2 ways. We need to create a list, just an array of fields that we need to reuse everywhere in our code, and then we need to create a specific functions that it's gonna actually activate those fields for our menu. Then the second thing that we have to do is show the columns in the actual menu item, and by columns I mean this section here. When you access the appearance menu in the administration and you click on the screen options, you're gonna see all these different options that you can activate, deactivate. We did something similar to activate the CSS classes. If you don't see the CSS classes here, you can activate. These are the menu properties of the WordPress administration panel, and these are the columns. When I mean columns, like WordPress calls these columns. Let's go back in our code editor. Then after showing the columns in the menu area, we need to create a function or create a method to save and update our fields, because by default WordPress doesn't know that we have new fields, so we need to create a specific functions to save and update dealing with those new fields. And then for the last thing, we need to update the WalkerNav class. And the WalkerNav class is not going to be the same WalkerNav class that we use for our front end and we use to generate the mega menu. WordPress generates this administration menu panel that you can drag and drop and do whatever you want with a WalkerNav class as well. So we need to update that WalkerNav class, that is the admin WalkerNav class, in order to implement our custom fields here. So now that we have the full list of tasks and everything that we need to do, let's start by creating the fields. And because we're not in object-oriented programming, but we are in procedural, I need the fields to be reusable everywhere, to be called everywhere. So I'm gonna store those fields inside a function, and I'm gonna assign that function to return the list of arrays that I want for my fields. This is kind of sketchy, this is kind of weird to do it, but bear with me, like follow for now my logic. You can always refactor in object-oriented programming and use like a public variable or a private self variable, whatever you want. But for now, let's do this. So let's create a function, just simply called fields_list, and of course you can call this method however you want, and this function is gonna just return an array, and the array is gonna contain all our fields, all the fields that we need to define. And for now we're gonna define just two fields, I guess, just to keep it simple. The first field is the mega menu field, and the mega menu field needs to return a label called like activate mega menu. Let's call it like that. Yes, comma. And the other field, a custom field that I want to create, it's going to be like column dash divider. And the column divider is going to have a value, or like we're going to use this value as the title of that checkbox called simply column divider. And that's perfect. Of course, we're gonna add later all the other fields that we're currently using, just the divider, the featured image, or the sub menu, or whatever. Like we wanna add multiple options and we wanna return to the user. For now, we're just gonna keep it simple, and we're gonna just deal with the mega menu, the main checkbox, and the column divider. So that's perfect. Now that we have this function, we can call it multiple times to return this array. So every time we need to manipulate this array, we can just store the return of this function inside a variable inside our methods. So let's keep doing. Now it's time to set up the fields in our database. And in order to set up the fields, we need to create a sweet function that we're gonna call, in my case, mega menu fields. And the mega menu fields is gonna be triggered by an action. And the action is, of course, as usual, add action. The action name is wp_nav_menu_item_custom_field. This is the action name of WordPress in order to hook a specific function to this specific action. So the second parameter, as always, has to be my custom functions name, so mega menu fields in my case, and then we need to specify at what point in time we want to trigger this action at point 10, and how many fields we want to pass to this function, to my custom function. And we need to pass 4 fields. The 4 fields that these WP nav menu item custom fields action of WordPress is gonna pass to my custom function are the ID of the field, the item of the field, the depth of that specific field and all the other arguments of that specific field as well. That's perfect. Now what we have to do, simply we need to grab my fields, the list of the array fields that I define here, associate those fields to these unique arguments, the 4 arguments passed to my custom function thanks to the action, and then return the HTML markup that I want to print inside the menu field. So I need to basically generate something like this. I want a checkbox with a label written with all my options, and the label needs to say what I specified in my array. So for the mega menu, I need a label that returns activate mega menu and so on. So first, let's store our fields list inside a simple variable. So let's call this variable fields, and this variable fields is gonna just simply call the fields list function. So now we have this array inside this fields variable. So now we're gonna do a for each loop, and the for each loop and for each, so for each column and for each fields as $_key, because I'm gonna tell you later why I'm not using simple $key but _key, the label. So basically I'm telling that for every field, let's store the key that I define here in the variable $_key, and the label that I define here in the $label variable. So now we can generate all the stuff that WordPress requires in order to have a custom fields in the appearance menu area. The first is the key. That's why I haven't defined the actual key of my array as simple key, but I define as _key, because the key needs to be different. The key needs to be printf. That is a method to associate a unique token to a unique variable, and the key needs to be menu-item- the actual ID that I specified in my array. So %s to set the token, and then _key to replace that token with my variable. So basically what's happening here, if it's confusing for you, WordPress in the menu area, in the administration menu area, doesn't use regular IDs. Like this is the ID, but WordPress doesn't use just mega menu as ID. What WordPress uses inside the administration menu area is menu item and then the ID. So in my case, it's going to be menu item mega menu. And that's what happened here. I'm defining the key to respect that structure. Otherwise, WordPress won't recognize. And WordPress will assign automatically, even if I don't define it, not even here or here, if I just pass simply mega menu, WordPress will automatically prepend the menu item to my ID fields every time I save or update my fields. So if I don't assign it manually, I'm gonna have a bad time because I cannot retrieve what's stored in the database related to the unique field. So just remember that. Then I need to define the ID of my field, and ID of my field is going to be printf as well. Printf, we're going to have the edit dash %s and again dash %s, because we're going to pass 2 tokens, and the first token needs to be the actual key that we generated. So it's going to be edit dash menu item mega menu, whatever key here, and the second token is the item ID. Then we need to define a name for our label, of course, and also in this case printf, and the name of the method, or like the name of the field, it's really weird in WordPress as well as everything else, because we have the actual name that is going to be the first one, that is going to be the key, and then inside square brackets we need to pass again the item ID. So let's give it another token. So the first token is going to be replaced as usual by the key, and the second token is going to be replaced again by the item ID passed by the action. Then the other variable is the value of our field, and the value of our field, we're gonna grab it automatically when our field is saved. So we cannot grab or define value like dynamically. This is a checkbox, so the value is going to be or 0 or 1. We cannot define the value by default 0 or 1, because if the user saved that checkbox, like checks the checkbox and save the menu, the value needs to be updated to 1. So we cannot manually define whatever is the value, but we need to retrieve that data from the database. To do that, we can just simply use the built-in method getPostMeta, and the getPostMeta requires 3 things: the ID of the post, the key that we need to return, and if we want to return a single value. In our case, yes, we want to return just a single value because it's going to be just like 0 or 1. We don't need multiple values, even if a store with the same item key, whatever. So getPostMeta, the first parameter is the item ID that we keep using. And the second parameter is the key, because we're storing in the database an item ID key mega menu that is going to be 1 or 0, whatever. No double semicolons, and then we can return the class that, I mean, is not super necessary, but WordPress uses it as well with the like assigning a unique class bounded to the ID of like the unique ID of our custom fields. It's something that WordPress does just to distinguish different fields. So let's keep following the logic and let's be good with that. Of course, the format of the class is field dash and then the usual token that is going to be replaced this time with just the real ID that we assigned here in our array of fields. So it's not going to be using the key that we created, so non-menu item dash mega menu, but it's going to be just field dash mega menu. That's it, pretty much. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to interrupt and reopen the PHP tags, and here we can print our HTML. So first, a paragraph with a class of description and then description wide. These are all built-in classes of WordPress, and if you are wondering how I pick those classes or how I know to use those classes, the simple thing that I did, I access the menu and I check, okay, how do I do this? Just right click, inspect element, and check. Here we're gonna print our custom class that we generated for our field. So we're gonna escape the attribute of our class variable just to be sure that everything is cool. And then we're gonna create the label for, let's copy these just to make things faster. Escape attribute of our ID. Then inside the label, we want to create an input, the type of checkbox. And then we want the ID to be, as usual, identical with the ID that we just generated. Then we need a name. And the name is, of course, the name variable that we created right here. Pretty standard, pretty simple. Then we want a value, and the value is not actually the value that we're going to store in the database, but the value of a checkbox needs to be the value that we want to store if the checkbox is checked or not. Now here we need to do an inline check. So with PHP and we open, we can use an if statement, like a shorthand if statement, to check if the value that is stored in the database is equal to 1. That means that this label, this checkbox, is actually checked. If it's not checked. So let's do an inline if statement by writing echo, then open and close the brackets, and let's say that value is equal to 1. Outside the brackets, we can say question mark to say if the value is equal to 1. Let's print the checked inside double quotes, checked. This is the HTML declaration attribute to say that a checkbox is checked. Otherwise, if the value is not equal to 1, just don't print anything and then semicolon at the end. Let's save it. That's perfect. So now we have the action that returns the field, and we just set up the fields. If we save it, we go back in our backend, like leave the page, we refresh, nothing actually happens. If we open here, we don't have anything. Of course, if we open the screen option, we still don't have anything because we didn't register the columns. That's what we're gonna do right now. The second step that we need to tackle is show the columns of these fields that we just generated. So let's do it right now. This is a really simple step because the only thing that we need to do, we need to create a function that we can call whatever you want. In my case, it's going to be mega menu underscore columns. And this function, it's gonna get a variable called columns. And we're gonna get this variable through the filter that we're gonna use to tap this function. So no worries, we're gonna tackle it in a second. Here, what we have to do, we have to, as usual, get the fields that we wanna use from our fields list method, that is this one here. And then here we need to just do a simple array merge. And the array merge, we're gonna merge the columns with our custom field. And then we're gonna return the columns. In order to call this method, we're gonna hook it to a filter, and the filter's name is manage underscore nav dash menus column, menus underscore columns. If you don't really understand this format, it's like why we're using underscore and then a dash and then a unique name and then an underscore again, I did a pretty kind of intensive session about how to edit the columns of WordPress in the Sunset theme in the premium development series. Just check that in the section where I create a custom post type and then I create custom columns for that post type. I think it was the comment section, yes, if I remember right, but I explain a lot why these filters work like this. That could be confusing, but this filter it's gonna be assigned to our custom class that is mega menu columns, and we're gonna call these as late as possible. So let's put a 99, just call it at the last time, like just don't call it before, because before calling this, before showing the new columns, we need to gather a bunch of things before. So we don't want to risk to trigger that stuff if our computation before, like the generation of our custom fields and all the rest, is not finished yet. So what this filter is doing, it's passing an array, a columns array, to our custom class. And this columns array, the only thing that has inside, it's actually the full list of our columns here. So all the boxes and the advanced menu properties that we have here. So it's just a list of this. The only thing that we're doing, it's actually merging the default columns list with our custom fields list. That's why I also didn't add this menu item default inside my array, because this ID doesn't have to have the menu item pre-appended to the ID. The ID has to be unique. So that's why I left it right there. And here we're just doing an array merge and we're returning the columns that we just merged. So if we save and we go back in our backend, we refresh and we open the screen options. Oh, look what we have right now. Activate mega menu and column divider. We have two beautiful new options that automatically are checked, and thanks WordPress to check my custom options automatically. And these custom options are gonna take care of showing if we want the checkboxes to activate the mega menu or activate the column divider inside our appearance menu here in the administration panel. And this is perfect. So I'm gonna stop right here for these first part of tutorial. I'm gonna continue immediately, but I'm gonna upload the next part in the next day, just because we tackle a lot. So experiment with this, create your custom fields, all the fields that you need, create your unique fields, return a unique HTML structure, and update the type of columns that you want to print in the administration area related to the appearance menu of WordPress. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look on how to save and update the fields and how to implement the WalkerNav class for the edit menu in the admin area. So it's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes on the support me page of my website, where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding!